Greetings, everyone. The following is a co-production of Rocket Green Radio and Taking Care of Business Radio. This is Richard Solomon and Antonio Sayant, and we have a very, very special guest. His name is Scott Massey, and he is with a company called Grow LLC. Scott, tell us what you do.
So I create automated hydroponic appliances that are capable of growing enough organic produce to eliminate your dependence on a grocery store for most produce, all within your own home.
And when you say home, for us city folks who live in small apartments, do we still qualify?
So this is a standalone system. I mean, just like an appliance that you would have anywhere, you could put this anywhere in your home. The whole goal is to consolidate the space that you would otherwise have in a field into a single standalone unit. So if you want your lettuce, you want your spinach, your strawberries, you just open a door and it's as fresh as it can possibly be grown within the system.
Now, obviously, if it's really like freshly picked, that means that you have the peak of vitamins and minerals, which I guess are lacking when something has been schlepped across America to get to the supermarket and then finally hauled to your house, where it then may sit in the refrigerator for a couple of more days until it gets consumed.
Absolutely. 2/3 of our nation's produce actually comes from California. And so when you think about it logistically, by the moment it's picked, you're killing the plant. You're going to have a few days of transit, sat in the store a few days, and you're probably eating food that's a week old.
So the freshest food you're eating is a week old?
Is absolutely.
Wow. Now, from a nutrition point of view, what have you tackled that overcomes that time deficit?
Well, really eliminating the time deficit altogether. I mean, you're looking at vitamin D, vitamin C, just about everything is reducing, degrading the moment it's literally decaying, from the moment it's picked until the moment you eat it. But if you keep it alive until the moment you eat it and you get that maximum freshness, I mean, you're not only ensuring it's fresh, but you're adding at least 1 to 2 weeks of shelf life to your produce.
Well, on top of it, it must taste a lot better, too.
Absolutely. You're leveraging the plant's natural ability of fighting off any pathogens.
So the HydroGrow, the soil that is used is
no soil, no soil at all.
Yeah,
all hydroponic.
Where's it come from, though? The soil?
There's no soil at all. Hydroponics uses exclusively nutrient-rich water, which is able to grow plants 2 to 3 times faster than what you would do in a normal farming method. The reason you're able to get this really fast-forwarded growth speed is the fact that you're having every essential nutrient readily available within a flowing fluid that otherwise would have considerable amounts of time for a plant to penetrate and grow into in soil.
Oh, I see.
So
how long does it take?
So every plant's different. For fruiting vegetables, you're going to have something that's going to take a little bit longer, probably a month or longer as well, too. But for the most part, being able to grow 2 to 3 times faster, that means I would be able to grow a head of lettuce, for example, in 3 weeks when it would normally take a farmer 3 months. Now, this is done by having extended light cycles using LEDs, so I'm maximizing my day, maximizing my nutrient content, and actually automating the system. One thing that makes my system really unique that really no one's doing yet is that the system is aware. It uses artificial intelligence to where the system is aware of what plants are being placed into it. So when you put spinach in, it will immediately adapt its pH, the electroconductivity of the water, the humidity, and the light exposure to that spinach's specific environmental preference. And not only will it do that, but it will itemize and find the average of all of these plants growing and cater it specifically to your own specific taste preference and what you're growing at that moment. So it's individualistic for every person.
Now, in terms of fruits and vegetables, is it preferable to have one unit for, say, vegetables and a different unit for fruit?
It really depends on what you're growing. A lot of the preferences aren't going to be so far apart that you're going to see something so wild that it's going to completely kill another plant. Right now I'm doing lettuce, spinach, cayenne peppers, and we're trying out strawberries and raspberries soon. So we're going to have a pretty big differential growing in here, and I feel very confident that all of which would be possible to grow.
All right, so
in a consolidated system.
So for the people out there who are listening in their cars and on good old-fashioned radios, help visualize for us what this actually looks like. On our YouTube channels, we'll have pictures that will accompany. But for right now, for the people who are just sort of in their cars and driving along, what do these systems actually look like? How big are they? How wide are they? How much water is there? Really take us through a tour, a visual tour.
Well, as an appliance manufacturer, you got a lot of stress on you. They got to look good. I mean, people take some serious pride in their stainless steel appliances, and that's something they're willing to splurge on a little bit, because if it doesn't look good, it simply won't sell. That's something I really focus on, probably every step of the way, knowing that it has to look good. So if you had to envision it, imagine an extruded aluminum frame with a polished finish on it, giving you a very high-quality finish, very comparable to stainless steel, accompanied by a tinted glass. So during the night, when the lights are off, you really almost see more of a mirror reflection. There's really not much to see, but a very sleek appeal with no buttons. Everything's automated on the app itself. But during the day, when the lights are on and the tinted glass lights up, the tinted glass allows you to where the light itself isn't obnoxious by any means, but it's more of a soft glow during the day. So it's great to have within your home without giving too much light or anything like that. But in the day, you're able to actually see in and look at the life and plants growing and really bringing that outside element indoors. It's honestly very surreal to see something this technologically advanced bring in this organic of an element into my home.
And I guess what's really neat is you don't have to worry about pesticides, bugs, dirt,
None of that's worried. If you talk to a lot of agricultural or biological engineers, they will tell you that the benefit of buying organic food oftentimes isn't worth the benefit, well, really the risk of having E. coli and other pathogens in your food, and the benefit of the potential unknown risk of having things like pesticides that a lot of research has proven could have potential adverse consequences for people. But because this is a local environment, sterilized within your home to where there's really no pathogen risk, you get the best of both worlds. It's organic without the risk of having an E. coli contamination.
That's actually so. You were sitting around one day at the pool drinking the cranberry juice, and a lightning bolt hits you on the head, and you say, "What?" How did this start? What was the aha moment? What was the because this is really cool and really progressive. So where did this all come from?
It all started, now I'm a senior right now at Purdue University in Indiana. I'm a mechanical engineering and technology major. I have a research position working at the Horticulture College here. It's a NASA-funded research project using hydroponics to develop life support systems for future space colonies. Now that project was much more research-focused, but I managed the fluid control system and met one of the people I work on this project now named Ivan Ball, who has an electrical background. Working on that project, I didn't have the aha moment to make the appliance. That was more of just kind of becoming introduced to hydroponics. I think the real aha moment came this summer when I had a summer internship before my final year of school, and I went to a construction company that was hiring, looking for interns, and I was originally told I would be working in Hawaii that summer, working on either a solar farm or some beachfront villas, and I naively accepted that offer, thinking that that was going to be the greatest opportunity ever to work in Hawaii. It would pretty much be a summer-long vacation. And then I had some trouble getting a hold of my HR manager, and then last minute, I was reassigned to El Paso, Texas to build Section 8 housing along the border to Juarez, Mexico. And that was a slight switch up from Hawaii from what I was originally told, but I found myself with a lot of free time, and I like to draw and make concept drawings for designs like this. And with playing around with the idea for a while, I had this finalized design that I realized, this is something I could really make. And that's when the spark was lit, and I started ordering materials, finalizing the blueprint, and everything just started rolling in.
Now, how big are the appliances? Like compared to, say, a dishwasher or a refrigerator or a very large refrigerator, what would these things look like in comparison?
My first generation model was the size of a refrigerator, and I've gotten a lot of feedback that although that's great, a lot of people don't necessarily have the room, especially in urban environments, to have another refrigerator within their home. And so the second gen model, which I'm currently designing and building right now, is the size of a mini fridge. We'd be talking 46 inches tall, 30 inches by 30 inches on the base.
And how much food can that yield?
The second generation model will be able to grow 45 plants simultaneously.
Wow.
So if you expand that over, and part of the business model is to order seed cups through the mail and have a continuous membership, kind of like a Dollar Shave Club, you could potentially have at least 2 full heads of lettuce every single day if you timed your hyper cycle correctly with your membership.
But by the way, Dollar Shave Club was bought for like $1 billion.
Yeah, just a little bit of profit there.
So
I was going to ask you what the cost would be because, I was in Whole Foods the other day, and they're into organic, foods. And
right.
I was looking at the eggs. A dozen eggs started from $5 to $8. And this is organic eggs. And I started to think, but why is it more expensive? Because they're not adding the chemicals, like they do with regular eggs, which takes a lot of time. You got to feed the chickens. You got to add certain chemicals to the feed, and so on and so on. But for organic, you're taking away. And I'm thinking, why is it so much money? I found that it was ridiculous, and I'm thinking, well, like Austin Casso, the gentleman from Red Giant Union, and he does tower gardens, and I had said to him, how much is this? Is it feasible for the people to buy this stuff? He says, yeah, it costs about the same when a lettuce and whatever. That you buy the product. Is that how much it would be for the people that want to grow their own food? Because I find when you go to the supermarket that I just think the price for organic foods is just too high.
Yeah, absolutely. You're looking at a lot of stuff kind of more towards the logistics of mass manufacturing. Some things that organics doesn't include are certain types of fertilizers, and so not using those fertilizers would theoretically lower the actual crop output that they're having to harvest. And so when that happens, they're going to have to account for that financial loss and increase the price as well. And then the chemicals you mentioned probably also include preservatives as well, too. So now you have produce that you're growing as the farmer that doesn't last as long on the shelf if you're not using a lot of those preservatives. So it's more of just accounting for the losses, if anything. I think this is the perfect opportunity to open up the next level tier of the food itself. Yes, you can get premium food. Yes, you can get organic food that probably had a lot less of these chemicals we can use. And now you can get the premier, highest quality produce available. And we're talking about break-even points. That's an excellent question because this unit has the possibility of breaking even within the first 5 years of the person buying it. Well, I'm talking full cash back. Assuming they're spending $20 a week and I was able to sell this unit for $1,000, you would break even around the 5-year point. And that doesn't even begin to account for the amount of time and effort you save. Where I live in Indiana, going to the grocery store really isn't that big of a deal for me. I hop in my car and it's a 5 to 10 minute trip away. But I'm assuming you guys as well, living in New York, and many people in Chicago near me who are relying on public transportation, that trip to the grocery store is now an hour or more on a bus or a train or a taxi, and they're carrying the groceries with them. I mean, you're looking at time and money saved overall.
Well, speaking of time, this is Richard Solomon, Antonio Siant, and we're with Scott Massey, and we are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to ask Scott, is this stuff great for a snowstorm? Because you can still keep eating while you're all buried in snow. Keep it locked in. We'll be right back. Richard Solomon, Rocket Green Radio, Taking Care of Business Radio.
What I really need, some kind of affection.
Welcome back. This is Richard Solomon and Antonio Siant. We are the team behind Rocket Green Radio and Taking Care of Business. This is our co-production. This week's special environmental guest is Scott Massey, who is the founder and president of Grow LLC, and his website is hydrosite, S-I-T-E, hydrogrow.site. And I was asking him about this incredible product that he's devised, which is to hydroponically grow very efficiently in your home. Like that's right, in your home, a farming system basically. And I was saying, like, let's say you live in, I don't know, 200 miles south of the Arctic Circle, and the weather gets a little rough out there.
You want fresh strawberries,
right? Right, exactly. So as long as you have your satellite phone and your satellite TV, and I guess a solar generator or something like that, you can sit back and you can actually have those frozen daiquiris.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's really, really cool. So you have the foundation of an incredible product. Where do you see this headed, and how will you be able to expand it? And once this catches on fire, and it's a question of when, not if, in my opinion, how do we get people to be excited about growing their own food and actually becoming reoriented to getting food that's not with a barcode or styrofoam or shrink wrapped?
That's a hard question to say, because it's hard to ask yourself what demographic of people buy a refrigerator, because everyone buys one. It's a universal product. I mean, something like this to me makes too much financial sense for it to not work, which is why I'm wholly invested into it. I foresee in my lifetime this infiltrating a very large portion of American households. You're looking at what's happening in California right now. They produce 2/3 of our produce, and they're experiencing extreme droughts. You probably haven't heard about it much lately because the elections were dominating the headlines, but I can guarantee you once El Nino lets up and they start experiencing some real dry spouts again, and you go to the grocery store and you notice that your strawberries might be twice as expensive even, you're going to really start to feel these issues. And with the growing population only increasing the demand for a shrinking supply of food as we lose farmland, you're going to see a huge demand open up. I think the biggest opportunity is to start moving into the residential marketplace, really just for the consumers.
Well, what's also
so what is this whole idea also like? I was telling Austin Casio from Red Giant Union, I said, what does that idea work in another country like Africa where people are starving and they cannot grow food in their land because the dirt is contaminated? And I said, this is a great idea for people that are starving.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, to me, thinking that people still die today from starvation, and then at the same time people are dying in the U.S. because of obesity, how is there such a stark disconnect in our world that there is such an unequal distribution of resources that we can't find a way to help these people? I mean, you can give them food supply, but I mean, they're limited and completely reliant on that. Until you create a system that's going to allow them to independently live, you're just going to have a continued problem. I think this is really the only viable solution in these areas, and I couldn't agree with you more.
Well, we actually had a radio show not that long ago where we discussed the California drought at length. And, it's a very, very real problem. And it will come to haunt us because, water is not an unlimited free resource. And,
right.
If you think about it, just in New York, I don't know, for the people this is a national show, but on a local level, in the New York metropolitan area, there was a lot of Long Island farms. And a long time ago, way back when, there were actually farms in Queens. There's one surviving today, but it's more of a farm museum. There used to be a lot of farms in Nassau County. In fact, there was a lot of potatoes grown in Nassau County. That is, in Nassau County, I think the number of farms has shrank to almost nothing or a relatively small amount. Then further east is Suffolk County, and you see what was once big farms became office parks and all this because the land is, quote, too valuable. Now, I always kind of think, well, too valuable, but no farms, no food. I actually have the little sticker in my car that says that, no farms, no food. And the greater threat I actually find is that there are a lot of people outside of the United States buying U.S. farms because they want to have food security. So they're buying up our farms and maybe keeping them as farms, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the food is going to be local for us anymore. So what you're actually doing
why they're buying it, though?
What's that?
You know why they're buying it? It's because we have a growing population. There's going to be more housing developments. They're going to sell it plot by plot and make a good return on their investment.
Well, exactly. Well, that and the fact that other places need food as well, and this is how they ensure some of their inventory of food. Look, it's kind of shocking to me that a country like ours has to import a lot of food, like tomatoes. I mean, I can understand that you can't get maybe sugar cane grown in New York, or coconuts or things like that that are really climate specific because we don't have the climate for that. But it's hard to believe that maybe things like tomatoes or eggplants, have to be brought in from thousands of miles away or something like that, or even just sort of like flowers. It's kind of hard to believe that flowers.
And there's really no need for that. I mean, I've heard statistics that 80% of the cost in the grocery store just comes from transporting it. And then you also probably have to include, the sheer resource cost of the packaging, the plastic, the small details people don't think about is really what consumes the most.
Well, yeah, and when you think about it, even though you buy, and I do, I buy lots and lots of organic food, but lots of that organic food is in plastic bags of some kind or some kind of plastic container that's not necessarily recyclable.
Exactly.
It may be plastic, but it's not the kind of plastic that recycles well. And I don't know that
in some instances, even the recyclable plastic consumes more energy than it is to just continue to make the same plastic.
Exactly.
That's exactly my complaint over the years. I do a lot of lectures at the Green Festival, and I'm part of the advisory board. And I was a judge, and I walked around to a lot of brands. And I came across this gentleman that makes these toys, recycled wood. And I asked him a question, and the question was, the machinery that makes this, is it sustainable? And he started eating his words. He didn't know what to say because it's not. And he's wasting more energy doing this. So I said to him, I'll be honest with you, but this toy is sustainable, but the way it's manufactured, it's not.
Right.
So he didn't understand what I was trying to say, but yet he's in a green festival. I understood that his product is, but the factory and the machinery and everything that makes this product, just like plastics, they spend more money, more energy recycling the plastic itself. And it's honestly,
I do think it's the cost of innovation as well, too.
Sure.
You're not going to find new methods to make these things cheaper or better until you try it. It's all about trial and error, really. I mean, with my system, had I made this 10 years ago when LEDs were considerably more expensive and less efficient, along with other microcontrollers and other different electrical components, my system really wouldn't have been that much more beneficial. But now that these technological advances are happening and LEDs are much more efficient and much more cheaper, I have the benefit of really creating an innovative product the first time it's ever available.
So let me ask you about
But you're absolutely right with what you're saying, though.
Let me ask you about the water, that you use, the nutrient-rich water. Does the consumer have to make that water, or do they? Because let's face it, a lot of us have just tap water, and the last time I checked, it was not nutrient-rich. So how do I go about? So I have your system, but I definitely need nutrient-rich water. Where is my source of that, and do I make that myself? And if I do, what is my formula?
So first and foremost, it uses 95% less water than normal farming methods, mostly because it's indoors and you're not even having to deal with evaporation or other wasteful resources. It just recirculates the same water. But that's well known with hydroponics. The control systems is where a lot of the interesting research is happening right now. It's where you need to have the nutrient-rich water. And the two biggest factors you need to monitor is the pH of the water, which pretty much allows nutrient uptake and needs to be kept in a very ideal window. And then the second aspect is electroconductivity of the water, which in simpler terms is kind of the measurement of the nutrient content of the water. My system has sensors that are submerged into nutrient-rich water, and it has an app on your phone. The app will get a ping notification and will tell you exactly how much of the pH acid or the pH base or the nutrient solution to add to the water. And so it's no more difficulty than adding flour to a recipe when you're baking a cake. And that's something I'm working with a chemical engineer as well to start developing actual incremental bits to where, similar to one of those fish oil capsules, you would simply add a capsule and you would just have a quantitative amount to where you're simply picking and placing.
Now,
simplicity is definitely key with a product like this.
Now, am I using distilled water as my water?
Yes, I use tap water straight out of my faucet in my apartment.
Wow.
Now, I wouldn't know the answer to this, but what is the pH of the water that comes out of your tap?
Hopefully pretty neutral. I mean, it's going to be pretty different in every situation. Mine came out pretty neutral for the most part, maybe slightly acidic, somewhere around like 6.5.
Now, do you want the water to be slightly alkaline?
We're talking about, you would be talking more about a plant-specific preference. Some plants might prefer a slightly acidic environment, and then some might prefer maybe a slightly basic environment. It just really depends on the specific application.
So how do you determine? So how have you researched what plants like as far as their pH?
Well, that's just kind of as far as going to the library. There's been a lot of research publications about these specific likes. It's just a question of whether or not you're willing to learn about it and dig into these resources. I had the benefit of being at Purdue, which is a great agricultural school, and have just about every resource I need and professional input whenever regarding these informations and whether or not someone might actually disagree with a publication.
Now, hey, Richard, don't you remember the days where you had a fish tank of salt water?
I had a fish tank with fresh water, but and you had to check the pH. You had to take a sample, and then you had to put the stuff in it, and then you looked against some colors, and you see what color.
A little wand in there.
Right, and you match the color, and then generally, because it was a fish tank, there would be urine from the fish, so that would make it more acidic. So then you'd have to put, I guess, something like a baking soda in there to sort of neutralize that out. Because they couldn't live in
a little complicated for me. It's a little complicated for me. I like to simplify that down so people aren't trying to match colors.
Well, people went to the library or people purchased books, and because each, different fish, you had to be careful, because, it's a saltwater tank. So you had to really do your research, and I can understand what you're saying. So if you have passion enough, people would want to learn exactly how to do this, especially if it has to do with food. You want to get it right. So I agree with what you're saying. I think people would just Google it and try to find information about it and how to, purify their foods and make it better so they understand, so they could grow it at home. I mean, I think that's a fantastic idea.
Oh, I love the idea.
I think Americans buy on convenience for the most part, and if something can make their life easier, then they'll probably buy it. Just the fact that measuring stuff becomes complicated for more people. I mean, when you're talking about, the green demographic of people who really want to see this technology take off, I think they have the passion to where they're willing to learn what they need to. But I think for the average American who might not share that passion, you really need to simplify the system to really capture their attention for a device like this.
There are certain plants out there that are very hard to grow, or they have very limited times of the year when they're produced. Like say fiddle greens, I think they're grown in the mountains of Canada, and you only see them in July for like 2 weeks. I assume your system would actually break past all of that and allow people to grow things that may, in the natural world, be harder to produce, and especially if they have either short cycles, limited cycles, or they only grow in mountain ranges or something like that, that you could actually bring those things which may have better nutritional values right into your home, and you could be eating like literally superfoods. I know that that's sort of a trendy name, but in many ways you could be eating like golden berries or things that normally you'd be, or goji berries or whatever it is. Some of the things that are grown more in more rugged and remote terrains, and you could be growing them right in your home.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, there's always going to be some really specific variables that need to be accounted for, but for a whole area of research that this is just kind of open water, and I'm just starting to scratch the surface. I mean, you're just highlighting some of the areas that I'm really starting to move into right now. And that all kind of goes into coordination with the AI, moving into the automation aspect as well. I mean, when these two things work harmoniously together, I mean, it's a really beautiful product.
What are the hardest things to grow hydroponically, and what are the easiest things to grow? Right now,
I would say desert plants might be the hardest to grow hydroponically. I have the benefit of this being aeroponics. I use the term hydroponics because most people don't really understand what aeroponics even means in the first place, so hydroponics is a little bit more relatable. The hardest thing to do would probably be desert plants, so things like cactuses. They're more prone to fungus development and other such things. Whenever they're in a really moist environment, I mean, they're adapted to survive deserts for a reason. With aeroponics, it would be possible to grow that because you're no longer submerging the roots in water. You're simply misting the plants themselves. Admittedly, it would be difficult to grow a cactus alongside lettuce, which is very easy to grow hydroponically and aeroponically. It'd be more of just kind of finding two plants that could grow together.
Let me ask a more bizarre question.
Okay.
We have in New York, a lot of the trees have perished because of things like Dutch elm disease and things like that. Would your system help create at least an environment for some trees to get their start before you move them out into the environment so they have a little bit of a fighting chance to grow and sustain?
Absolutely. One problem, I don't know if you necessarily call it a problem, it's a blessing and a curse, is that the roots grow very well in the system, almost too well. For people who are growing heads of lettuce with 3 feet of roots on it in some instances, that they just let it go and just never trim it back or anything. Now, obviously, it would take a pretty large amount of time for that to grow. It's not like they're going to sneak up on you. But you could have a tree prepared with 3 feet of root structure to where you could almost guarantee that plant's survival once you plant it.
Wow.
We have 1 minute left in this particular segment. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
I'm very responsive on my email. My email is hydrogrow, HYDROGROW .site, SITE, @gmail.com, or they can check out my website directly, and that's www.hydrogrow.site.
All right. And with that, this is Richard Solomon and Antonio Sam. We're going to take our last break. Keep it locked here on Taking Care of Business and Rocket Green Radio. Right back.
What I really need, some kind of affection.
Welcome back. Richard Solomon. We are talking Hydro Grow with Scott Massey, our guest, and our fabulous co-host, Antonio Sayant, Rocket Green Radio, and we are taking care of business, and this is our joint venture on environmental and sustainability issues. Because the truth is that we really need to be forward-looking, and we've had some incredible guests, not only Scott, who's with us today, but we've had some incredible guests who look for medicinal plants and grow foods in shipping containers and do things about reducing plastic in the I guess the trash cycle. And these are the kind of people who are going to really make a big difference. And a lot of people always say, I can't really change the world. And the answer is you can. And we are actually bringing to the forefront in radio all of the people who are changing the world. So we want you out there to be fired up and inspired that you can really make a difference. It's not like everyone's pushing a boulder uphill and it's a giant mountain. We do have really big issues, but we have really smart, hardworking, motivated people who are not billionaires or trillionaires, who are just regular people who are coming with phenomenal breakthrough ideas that will be life-changing. And, when we saw the Jetsons a long time ago with the flying cars, everything is still possible. And if you look back, and we did a show on Star Trek at Star Trek 50 years of Star Trek, look at all the things that Star Trek predicted, from cell phones and laptops to remote diagnostic machines and video conferencing. So we're actually talking with one of those people right now. So Scott, what do you see as sort of down the road in terms of I'm going to ask this first, large scale, and maybe not just the home, but maybe you at the middle of a university, the food people have a gigantic infrastructure of hydroponics, and that's what sustains the meal plan for everybody.
Yeah, my ultimate goal, I want every meal you eat to be grown out of a hydro-grow system to really create a truly sustainable society, and I think this is the perfect opportunity to do so. And like you said, anybody is capable of doing these sort of things. I'm a senior right now at Purdue University. I'm studying mechanical engineering technology as my major, and I'm a full-time student. But I've completely self-funded my product development by delivering newspapers between 1 and 4 a.m. every night. And I can tell you that as much as I love delivering newspapers at night, I really wouldn't be doing that job if I didn't share this passion that I really had an idea that I thought could change the world. And there's lots of resources out there that are willing to help people, and I've been lucky enough to do very well in business, entrepreneurial, and agricultural sustainability-based competitions. This past semester, I was able to successfully generate $35,000 in a month through competitions alone. That provided significant grant money and also investment money from Purdue University to really launch Hydro Grow. As far as my long-term goal, I want to start ramping up my manufacturing capabilities, really expanding upon what's possible, and finding out how to do it as soon as possible as well, too, which is all being developed as we speak.
Well, I can help you with that. We'll talk about that offline. But yeah, I actually know the people who may be strategically important to that. But we'll talk about that after the show.
Yeah, that's exactly the people I'm looking for right now.
Now, if you were to start with a product line for urban areas, how would that differ from a product line for more of the suburbia?
It comes down to size. Right now, I have my basic flagship item, which is the Hydro Grow unit, and it's kind of a mini fridge, refrigerator size unit that allows you to have produce. But I'm also looking into consideration of making wall mount systems that would have the dual benefit of purifying the air as well as facilitating production at the same time. I have a lot of different ideas, and I'm kind of focusing on one at the moment. One problem you'll quickly learn as an entrepreneur that when you try and do too many things at once, you're not really doing any one thing at once. So I'm focusing more on my single product right now. But I think kind of the size and scalability of the unit comes down to how I would actually retrofit it for different environments.
Now, what's kind of interesting is, all those people who get recreational vehicles and go around the country. in many ways, they could actually schlep their food with them.
Yeah, they could.
You know?
It's absolutely possible. I actually use aluminum extrusions that are very similar to the manufacturing methods of making trailers on semis. So you could incorporate this into the actual Winnebago trailer itself if you really wanted to.
Well, exactly. That's what I'm thinking, because there's a very large segment of our population that is mobile and does camping. And think about this. You've driven, you're tired, you want to put the rig somewhere. The last thing you want to do is start having to figure out where your food is going to come from if you're running low on provisions. But if you're constantly growing your food, then that actually is one less problem on the road.
I mean, do you really want to open that can of ravioli, or do you want to crack open a fresh head of lettuce?
Exactly.
That's actually a great idea. I never thought of that.
I might steal that idea. I better be careful.
Yeah,
well,
even the truck drivers, the trucks nowadays, the brand new ones, where they have the compartments where they sleep.
Yeah, the sleeper units.
I mean, it's huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
And I think that's great for them that they drive cross country. I mean, for them that they're able to eat fresh fruits, fresh vegetables. I think that's fantastic. Those are things that that you present, especially the manufacturer. The auto industry right now is always looking into being sustainable right now, and that's just a way of adding to it. And they may look at it as, wow, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's Richard. That's amazing.
Well, I'm telling you, you're in your RV and you just kind of munching on broccoli as you hit Route 66.
Yeah. Sure. Why not? Somebody's got to do it.
So
it beats pulling over to Whole Foods and buy this stuff which costs a fortune, and know that's shipped from California or somewhere that's been sitting somewhere for 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
Well, I think what this guy was saying is because of all the pressure on the food chain, this would actually allow for some breathing room.
Yeah. I mean, you look in the Midwest, most of the corn and soybean there is used for ethanol and other industrial purposes. It's never going to be on our food plate. If this would have the opportunity to free up the farm space to where we could have more green technology brought into our industry, I mean, that's where a lot of the pollution and contaminations come from. It's just the industry that we don't want to think about. We got to start thinking about where the biggest cost is and where to cut it at the most.
Well, we would probably reduce a lot of the CO emissions by not having to truck as much food all over the place.
Huge amounts.
Right? Because
you're talking about the lights to keep the store lit, where the retail setting has happened, the truck that's being used to drive it, the petroleum-based fertilizers and other chemicals used. I mean, just pick one. It's across the board.
Without naming names, I have a friend who's in the beverage industry, and I remember looking at a can and there was this dirt on it, and he just said, "Oh, that's diesel dust." Now I'm thinking, "Oh my God, that is nasty."
Yeah.
I mean, that is. I don't know if you see that much anymore, but I'm like, that is unbelievably nasty. And the fact that people sort of just kind of wipe it off and they still drink, from the can, so to speak. There's got to definitely be some contact with, some diesel residue. Now, I know that over the years there's sort of more cleaner diesel and there's biodiesel, but the fact remains it's still energy that's being consumed. It creates CO. And I guess the less we use of it and the more plants we have that are living and breathing and cleaning the air, the better it is for everybody.
Exactly. I mean, you're talking about a device that's not only going to give you food, but it's going to provide fresh oxygen to your home.
Have you looked at the psychological impact of a system like this in a home in terms of if you're eating better food, you'll feel better, and if you're breathing more O2.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of research verifying that you're going to feel better just by having healthier food in your diet. I think that's well documented. One thing I work on at Purdue University on my senior project is a product called the BioWall. The BioWall is a system where it's a BioWall of plants that's connected to the HVAC system of the home. And this removes VOCs from the air. There's actually an alarming amount of VOCs in homes, especially now that buildings are being built more airtight. We're not having fresh air come in. And so when you have this VOC buildup from things like gasoline releasing toluene or aerosols releasing other VOCs in the air, they accumulate in the home. And the World Health Organization has that listed as one of the leading causes and concerns in the 21st century of human health. I mean, just kind of contributing to all sorts of developmental asthma and upper respiratory problems. But just having these plants here in the home, I mean, you're adding oxygen to the air, which just increases productivity and just general happiness of the occupants. I mean, that's very appealing. But I think one thing that's kind of hard to even measure quantitatively is just kind of the natural aspect of introducing a plant to the home, being able to look at that and just truly being part of nature. To me is just a really beautiful thing.
Well, I always love going to orchards in the fall to pick apples, pears, all that stuff. One of the great guests that we've had on Taking Care of Business was a gentleman named Dr. Michael Greger. And Dr. Greger wrote a book called How Not to Die. And he went through all the things that will decimate you, cut your life short, degrade your health. And in all of the pages of his book, his answer is you need to eat more plants. In fact, if you eat more plants and less animals and less a lot of other things, you will live longer and you will feel better and you'll have less chances for things like dementia and all the things that degrade you as you get older. And in some ways, you're the perfect partner to Dr. Greger because he wants you to eat plants. That's what he wants. And a lot of people, we eat things like grains because they don't spoil. They're just easier. They have a long shelf life. But they're not necessarily better for us. I mean, they give cows corn, but that's not what they're supposed to be really eating. They're supposed to be eating grass.
Right.
Right.
And there's not really many options right now. You can buy strawberries and other raspberries at the grocery store, and you'll be lucky if they last 4 or 5 days in your refrigerator before they start to spoil.
Right. And I am astounded how many times you buy a box of raspberries or strawberries, and then a couple of days later, they're moldy.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, there's $10 gone.
I mean, a good rule of thumb, if you're buying at the store, it's dead, and it's been dead.
Right. It's just, you got to just eat it while, it's got like, the last few moments on it. But
yeah, absolutely.
Have you ever taken pictures of your food and compared it to the same food in a supermarket? Just to show the more, you're supposed to, one of our guests was Deirdre Ventura, wrote a book called Upgrade Your Life One Bite at a Time. And she talks about, eating the multicolor diet. You're supposed to eat reds and oranges and all these other things. The more colorful food you eat and the more kinds of colors you eat, the better it is for you. And have you actually compared your raspberry to the, 8-day-old raspberry that just arrives at a supermarket?
I haven't done a lot of comparisons yet. It's mostly been focusing on the functionality of the product. That's one of the drawbacks of working on this as an undergraduate student, and you're kind of doing everything at the same time. You got to focus on your priorities at the moment. But what I can tell you is that you're getting a lot firmer fruit. I mean, you're not having the breakdown of any of the structures within inside, that you're actually getting a really nice elastic fruit. I mean, whenever you go to the orchard and you take those fresh strawberries and blueberries off the bush, I mean, you get that really whole kind of rigid fruit. It's so fresh. I mean, I think that's the most noticeable feature.
Well, they smell phenomenal. It's like when you go into the strawberry field, and you pick it right there. You know, it's red. It is firm. It's juicier, and it just smells. It has a real aroma that you don't get in a plastic box that you get from the supermarket. It's close, but look, it's certainly better than, you know, a hot dog. But
oh yeah, everyone, they're trying to find that, like, what's the catch of this? It sounds too good to be true. I bet it smells, right? Like, no, sounds weird. I'll open it occasionally in my house and just sniff it. It's a breath of fresh air, honestly. There's no other way to describe it.
So it just, because we only have like a couple minutes left. What are your favorite foods to grow and why? Not necessarily because they're easy, but if I said you had only 5 different kinds of food to put on in your system right now, what would you pick?
Ooh, I love strawberry and raspberries. You know, that's some of my favorite right there. You know, I eat a lot of lettuce too. I think salads are the perfect complement to every recipe. Ooh, basil too. Honestly, I've been adding basils to my omelet a lot lately, and that's been delicious. What's my count right now? 4.
And I guess you need tomato to go with the basil.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Scott, before we finish, I want you to just run down the campaign real quick.
Yeah, because we have a minute and a half left.
I recently partnered with Red Giant Union, which is a local charity here in Lafayette. Now they're building an indoor hydroponic urban farm to bring some fresh produce to the community here, and then also to build a community where people can start bonding and planning out on potential sustainable options for agriculture within the area to improve upon it. Now their website is www.redgiantunion.org. Look them up. They actually have a crowdfunding campaign going on right now, and you can make your tax-deductible donation.
All right. And with that, we have 1 minute left. So, again, give us your website, your email, and all that good stuff.
My website is www.hydrogrow.site, S-I-T-E. And my email is hydrogrow.site@gmail.com.
All right.
And anyone who wants to email me about potential collaboration, input, interest in the project, or you just want to tell me that you appreciate it and you want to meet me, email me, and I'll be sure to get back to you.
All right. So we'd like to thank you for your generosity of time.
Yes.
And we wish you nothing but success. And in the last 30 seconds, all I can say is our show goes really, really quick. This will be up on YouTube and in every other place because Antonio has this on iTunes and SoundCloud and everything like that. And we love him to death. We'll see you all next week. Eat good, make this week productive, and thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Grow your own freedom.
There you go. No farms, no food.
What